Welcome to the Senior Techie Podcast. Imagine sitting in your living room on a quiet afternoon.
Just, perfectly still.
Right, the house is completely silent. And you have a wonderfully full life. You've got hobbies you enjoy, errands to run, a loving family who calls on the weekends.
But right now, in this particular moment, the stillness just feels a little heavy.
Exactly. You might find yourself wishing someone would just ask how your morning went, or, I don't know, casually remind you that it looks like rain.
Yeah, just that little bit of friction to break up the quiet.
So we are sorting through a very specific, surprisingly nuanced world here. We're looking at artificial intelligence companions for aging at home.
Which sounds like science fiction, but it's really not.
Right. Our mission is to figure out how this technology is stepping into our living rooms. And let's be entirely clear right up front, the goal of these devices is not to replace human beings.
Definitely not. We are looking at how they are being designed to fill those quiet gaps in our days.
So to really understand this landscape, we are drawing on a compelling stack of sources.
Yeah, we have insights from the National Institute on Aging that break down the physical and cognitive impacts of isolation.
Which is fascinating stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're also looking at survey data from AARP that tracks how older adults are actually adapting to this tech. Plus, we have a detailed breakdown of the specific devices hitting the market right now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I know that whenever the phrase artificial intelligence gets thrown around, it immediately conjures up images from movies.
Oh, usually the ones where the robots take over.
Exactly. But before we get into the glowing hardware or the software, let's set up a physical analogy for how to think about this. Think of an AI companion not as a new best friend, but, well, more like a friendly, familiar neighbor.
I like that. The kind of neighbor who spots you on the porch and asks how your garden is doing.
Right, and reminds you to grab your umbrella because the forecast shifted. It's a low-stakes, casual interaction. It doesn't replace your deep relationships, It just makes the neighborhood or your house feel a little more alive.
That framing is essential for setting expectations. When we talk about AI in this context, we aren't talking about a thinking, feeling brain that understands you.
No, not at all.
Before we define the specific devices, it helps to understand what this technology actually is. Think of it like an impossibly fast, highly organized library filing system.
Okay, a filing system.
Right. When you speak to it, the AI isn't, contemplating your words. It's instantly sorting through millions of texts to predict the most statistically likely response.
And then reading it back to you in a warm conversational tone.
Exactly. It is generating the illusion of conversation. But as our sources point out, even an illusion can be highly functional if applied to the right problem.
Right, so it's a tool, not a consciousness. But before we explore how these tools work, we really have to look at the human experience they are attempting to address.
The why, basically. Why build them at all?
Yeah, and that requires us to look closely at the difference between simply being alone and the actual experience of feeling lonely.
Which are not the same thing. The National Institute on Aging provides some really vital guidance on this specific distinction, and it's a fascinating look at human psychology.
Because we use the words interchangeably, right?
All the time. But they emphasize that loneliness and social isolation are completely different. Social isolation is objective. It's just a measure of the size of your social network and your level of contact with others.
Okay, so just the raw numbers.
Right. But loneliness is entirely subjective. It is the distressing feeling that your current social relationships do not meet your emotional needs.
So you could be completely surrounded by people, like navigating a crowded grocery store or sitting in a bustling waiting room.
Or even attending a huge family holiday gathering.
Yeah, and still feel profoundly lonely.
Exactly. And conversely, you can live entirely alone, spend the vast majority of your week by yourself, and feel perfectly content.
The physical state of being alone doesn't automatically trigger the distress of loneliness.
But the NIA points out the critical danger when that distress does occur. Chronic loneliness doesn't just make you feel sad. It triggers measurable physical stress responses in the body.
Wow, measurable responses.
Yeah, the sources detail how prolonged isolation negatively affects cardiovascular health, weakens the immune system, and even accelerates cognitive decline.
So staying connected isn't just a matter of emotional comfort.
No, it is a fundamental pillar of long-term neurological and physical health. If the quiet days are starting to feel heavier, it's a biological signal telling you that your body requires interaction, much like hunger or thirst.
And that biological reality perfectly explains the core appeal of the AI companion. It steps into a very specific gap, which is the hesitation to reach out.
The fear of being a burden.
Yes, a lot of older adults express this feeling of not wanting to bother a busy relative. You might want to just chat for 2 minutes to break the silence, but you know your daughter's in the middle of a workday.
Or your son is wrangling his toddlers before dinner.
Right, the psychological friction of feeling like a burden stops you from picking up the phone.
So you sit with the silence instead. But what an AI companion offers is availability without guilt.
It provides what researchers call small moments of engagement.
Exactly. You can ask it, what's happening in the news? Or tell me a story about the 1950s, and it answers immediately. With infinite patience.
It doesn't judge you for asking the same question twice. And it's never too busy.
Right.
I have to push back on this premise just a bit, though. Does talking to a machine actually alleviate that biological distress of loneliness?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. Or does having to ask a computer how its day was just shine a harsh, uncomfortable spotlight on the fact that you are sitting there alone?
I totally get that concern.
Because I can easily see someone trying this, speaking into the empty room, and feeling even more isolated. Because at the end of the day, you're ultimately just talking to a piece of plastic.
What's fascinating here is how the psychological data answers that exact concern. The AI isn't actually trying to solve deep existential loneliness.
And it fails if you try to use it for that, right?
Oh, completely. What it provides is frictionless interaction. Our brains are wired to respond to auditory stimuli and language. The sheer availability of a voice answering back breaks up the mental stagnation of a quiet house.
So it's less about forming a deep bond and more about removing the heavy, oppressive silence.
Exactly. It keeps the language centers of the brain active and engaged, which mitigates some of that cognitive stagnation, even if you know you were talking to software.
Okay, so it's not trying to be your daughter. It's just trying to be a soundboard.
Right. The value isn't in the depth of the relationship, but in the practical day-to-day friction it removes.
Which leads directly into how these devices are actually being used to make life slightly easier.
Yeah. The most practical takeaway from the sources is that a good companion device doesn't need to revolutionize your life. It just needs to provide a gentle daily routine that offloads cognitive labor.
We are talking about small prompts throughout the day that maintain momentum. Let's visualize that gentle daily routine.
Okay, paint a picture for us.
Imagine it's raining. You are sitting with your coffee, and you suddenly can't remember if your physical therapy appointment is today or tomorrow.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. Normally, you'd have to hunt down your reading glasses, dig through a stack of mail on the kitchen counter, and try to decipher a tiny, handwritten appointment card.
Which is frustrating.
But instead, you just ask the room out loud. The device instantly tells you the appointment is at 2:00 p.m. And then, without being prompted, it suggests a few seated chair exercises you can do right now while you finish your coffee.
The relief in that scenario isn't because a robot is running your life. The relief comes because a small, frustrating annoyance, the search for the glasses, the hunt for the card, was completely bypassed.
The cognitive load was lifted.
Exactly. And these systems can manage hydration reminders, medication prompts, or encourage you to stand up and move around. They act as a passive support system for your physical independence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The sources highlight something called the nudge toward connection.
This is my favorite part of the research.
Think of this feature like having a highly observant personal assistant. The AI might notice your patterns and randomly suggest, hey, it's been a few days since you called your sister in Ohio. Would you like me to dial her?
Or, there's a local farmer's market happening downtown this morning. Should I check the weather for you?
That little nudge is so often the critical bridge between meaning to do something and actually doing it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely upends the traditional worry we have about modern technology.
Which is that screens and devices isolate us.
Right, keeping us glued to glowing boxes in our living rooms. But a well-designed AI companion, acting as a gentle nudge, is engineered to do the exact opposite. It pushes you back out into the real world.
It facilitates human connection by reducing the activation energy required to reach out to a friend or leave the house. AARP's survey data strongly supports this, actually.
Yeah, they noted that a significant number of adults over 50 see AI as a massive quality of life upgrade, precisely because it supports their independence.
Just think about the physical barriers of modern tech for a second. Tiny smartphone keyboards, confusing drop-down menus, software updates that change where all the buttons are.
Oh, that drives everyone crazy.
Voice control bypasses all of that. You just speak naturally. And for families, it offers incredible peace of mind. Many of these systems let a family member drop a quick voice message or photo directly to the device.
Letting them check in without requiring the older adult to manage a complicated app. But the experience relies entirely on choosing the right interface.
Right, not all AI is created equal.
Exactly. The market right now is generally split into 3 distinct categories of tools, and they serve very different needs. In fact, you might already own the first category without even realizing it can be used this way.
Let's start with that baseline. The smart speaker. This is your Amazon Echo, your Google Nest, or the Siri function on an iPad.
By the way, Apple support offers great, easy-to-follow instructions for privacy and voice setup on iPads and iPhones if you want to use Siri more effectively.
That's a great tip for our listeners at the Senior Techie. So the fundamental difference between a basic smart speaker and a true AI companion comes down to one word: initiation.
A smart speaker waits for a command. It sits silently on the counter until you explicitly ask it to set a pasta timer or play a jazz station.
Whereas a true AI companion initiates their relationship. It speaks up first to ask how you slept, or to suggest an activity based on your routines.
Before investing in dedicated companion hardware, the sources strongly recommend a 3-task test using a standard smart speaker, which is usually pretty cheap or already in your home.
Okay, what is the 3-task test?
For 1 full week, commit to doing 3 things out loud. Ask it for the weather every morning, use it to set 1 reminder for something you routinely forget, and use it to dictate a text message or make a phone call to one person.
It's a brilliantly simple diagnostic tool. If you spend a week doing those 3 tasks and you find the voice control aggravating, or you simply feel ridiculous talking out loud to an empty room.
Which is a very common reaction, by the way.
Yeah, then spending hundreds of dollars on an advanced AI robot is a terrible idea. It won't fix your underlying distaste for the interface.
Start with what you have. But if you do pass that 3-task test, and you find you enjoy the voice interface but want something capable of deeper conversation, we move to the second category, conversational software.
These are programs you can run on a smartphone or tablet you already own. There are low-cost or free platforms like Replica or Pi that are designed purely for open-ended chatting.
You type or speak, and the program engages in a surprisingly fluid dialogue about history, philosophy, or just your day.
But the sources also highlight a platform called Senior Talk, which approaches the interface problem in a truly fascinating way.
It's so clever. Instead of forcing you to download new software, learn a new interface, and figure out a new set of digital buttons, it uses the communication channels you already rely on.
Like regular phone calls, standard SMS text messages, WhatsApp, or Facebook Messenger.
That is a masterclass in reducing cognitive load. By meeting you exactly where you already are, it completely eliminates the intimidation factor.
You don't have to learn how to use a new system, you just text a new contact. It integrates seamlessly into existing daily habits.
But let's say holding a fluid verbal conversation isn't the goal. What if someone is experiencing cognitive decline and back-and-forth dialogue is actually frustrating or confusing?
That brings us to the third category: dedicated, specialized hardware. These are physical devices that sit in your home, engineered for very specific emotional and physical needs.
EleQ is a prime example of proactive hardware. It sits on a side table, but unlike a static smart speaker, it physically moves. It rotates slightly to face you when it speaks.
Just acknowledging your presence in the room.
Right. And that subtle physical movement is profoundly important psychologically. Our brains are hardwired to recognize and respond to physical presence in motion.
So by moving, EleQ feels less like an appliance and more like an entity, which makes you more willing to engage with its wellness prompts.
Exactly. But then we look at Paro. The sources dedicate significant time to Paro, which is essentially a robotic baby seal.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here. Why on earth would someone want a robotic baby seal instead of an app that can actually talk back to them, tell them the weather, and remind them to take their pills?
Because Paro serves an entirely different neurological need, particularly in memory care settings. Paro doesn't speak English. It doesn't hold conversations or give reminders.
So what does it do?
It responds to physical touch, light, and sound with gentle movements and soft animal-like noises. For individuals experiencing moderate to severe cognitive decline, a verbal conversation with an AI can cause severe agitation.
Because it demands cognitive processing that is failing. The expectation to understand and reply becomes stressful.
Precisely. Pero bypasses the language centers of the brain entirely. It relies on tactile therapy.
Soothing weight of the robot, the soft fur, its responsive movements.
It triggers the release of calming hormones like oxytocin. It's similar to petting a live cat or dog, but without the physical demands, unpredictability, or safety risks of actual pet care.
It is a powerful example of how technology is specializing to treat the emotional symptoms of aging, not just the logistical ones.
Similarly, in South Korea, a device called Hyodoll is widely used. It looks like a traditional, comforting, soft doll, but is embedded with sensors to remind users of routines and provide gentle emotional engagement.
But here's the stark reality check that we have to discuss on the Senior Techie today. Whether it's a glowing screen on your tablet, a moving robot on your counter, or a soft robotic seal, these are still commercial products manufactured by tech companies.
Yes, which means bringing them into your personal space requires setting some very rigid boundaries.
The sources are unequivocal about consumer protection here. The absolute non-negotiable rule is data privacy. You must never give a companion AI your bank account number, your social security number, your Medicare details, or your passwords.
Under no circumstances.
Exactly 0 circumstances.
If you are paying for a premium service or buying hardware, you only input payment information through a secure, verified company website, never directly to the AI in conversation.
And the standard guidance applies. Use a credit card rather than a debit card. Credit cards generally offer much more robust fraud protection if a company mismanages your data or goes out of business.
Beyond the financial data, we have to talk about the emotional red flags, because these systems are literally engineered to sound empathetic. They use warm tones and reassuring language.
But you have to remember, it is just software. Be highly cautious if an AI suddenly claims that it loves you.
Or if it asks you to keep secrets from your family.
Yes, or if it tries to encourage you to move the conversation to an encrypted platform. If a program abruptly stops chatting and demands immediate payment to continue a conversation, you are dealing with manipulative software.
Close it, delete it, and discuss it with a trusted family member. This also raises an important question about how we trust the information these devices give us. We really need to understand a phenomenon known as AI hallucinations.
Let's define that jargon, because hallucination makes it sound like the computer's dreaming.
Right, which it isn't.
To understand an AI hallucination, think of the AI like a highly articulate, impeccably dressed, but completely overconfident tour guide.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
You ask this guide for directions to a specific museum. They look you right in the eye, point confidently down the street, and give you incredibly detailed turn-by-turn instructions. They sound totally certain.
But the museum burned down 20 years ago.
Exactly. The AI isn't maliciously lying to you. As we discussed earlier, it is just a prediction engine. It is stringing words together based on statistical probability.
And sometimes it predicts a sequence of words that is completely factually incorrect, but it delivers that incorrect answer with absolute, unwavering confidence.
That architecture makes an AI companion fantastic for casual conversation, asking for a recipe, or playing a trivia game. But it is fundamentally incapable of reasoning.
Therefore, for any major decisions regarding your medication dosages, managing your finances, interpreting legal documents, or dealing with physical safety, you must consult a qualified human professional.
The AI is not a doctor, it is not a lawyer, and it's certainly not a fiduciary.
You also have to apply standard consumer skepticism to the dedicated hardware devices. Always read the fine print.
You need clear answers on the recurring monthly subscription fees because the upfront cost of the robot is rarely the final cost.
You need to know their exact return policy if you try for a week and find it annoying. You need to know how technical support works when it inevitably drops its Wi-Fi connection.
And crucially, you need to know what happens to this expensive piece of hardware if the startup company that made it goes bankrupt tomorrow. Does it keep working, or does it instantly turn into a very expensive paperweight?
The underlying vulnerability here is human nature. As the sources point out, because these devices are designed with physical movement, warm voices, and infinite patience, it is incredibly easy for our brains to anthropomorphize them.
To assign them human agency, feelings, and motives.
Exactly. We naturally project empathy onto them. While that projection makes the interaction comforting and effective for loneliness, it also makes it dangerously easy to let our guard down.
And share private vulnerabilities or data we would normally fiercely protect. So what does this all mean? It means you have to hold two truths in your head at the same time. You can enjoy the comfort and convenience of the technology while maintaining a firm boundary that it is simply a utility.
And that leads to the ultimate litmus test provided by the experts. An AI companion should make you feel calmer, more organized, and more connected to your actual life.
It should never make you feel pressured, financially confused, or emotionally manipulated.
It is meant to be one single support beam in a much larger, richer architecture of your life. An architecture built on real people, physical routines, and choices that remain entirely in your control.
AI companions, whether it's a simple text program you try on your phone, a smart speaker sitting on your kitchen island, or a specialized device providing tactile comfort, offer a truly fascinating way to add small moments of engagement to a quiet day.
Their highest purpose is to remove the friction of daily tasks, to support your physical and cognitive independence at home, and to provide that gentle nudge you might need to reach back out to your loved ones.
They are a bridge to the real world, not a replacement for it. And that brings us to a final thought we want to leave you with, a concept to mull over as you consider the role of technology in your own home.
The sources heavily emphasize how an AI's gentle nudge can be the critical difference between meaning to call a friend and actually picking up the phone to do it.
But what if you applied that underlying psychological concept to your own physical space today? What is one gentle nudge or system you could create for yourself right now, without a screen, without a Wi-Fi connection, and without a robot, to ensure you turn your good intentions for connection into action this week?
Maybe it's leaving a sticky note right on the handle of your coffee pot, reminding you to call your sister.
Maybe it's putting your walking shoes directly in front of the door so you physically cannot ignore them. You don't need a microchip to build a system that supports your best intentions.
We encourage you to stay curious, to experiment carefully, and to always keep questioning how technology can be optimized to serve you, rather than the other way around.
This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to receive their free newsletters, you can subscribe at subscribes.o.com/Katecho.